As is not infrequently the case, I was thinking about Composer. This week, I was thinking about Composer in the context of FAIR, Federated and Independent Repositories, and the fact that today, FAIR doesn't really support Composer-based WordPress. You can install the FAIR plugin via Composer, although you do need to manually add the Git repository to do that, but using Composer just gives you access to the FAIR plugin. It doesn't give you access to the FAIR infrastructure. Don't get me wrong, there are things the FAIR plugin does beyond hook into the FAIR protocol, things that I actually wanted in this context when I was installing it, but hooking into the FAIR protocol is about 80 to 90% the point of using the plugin. From a high level, FAIR is an infrastructural replacement for WordPress.org. When you install the FAIR plugin, you're opting into using this new protocol. The protocol itself supports things like additional layers of security and checks to ensure that the source of your package updates is authoritative and uniquely cryptographically signed by the developer of those packages, whether they be WordPress themes, plugins, or WordPress core itself. Today, what that means is that updates are coming from a server maintained by a community project called AspirePress. AspirePress maintains an independent mirror of WordPress.org, and AspirePress is cryptographically signing the packages that it gets from WordPress.org on behalf of those developers. In other words, by using the current implementation of FAIR today, you are saying, I trust AspirePress more than I trust WordPress.org. In the future, I expect plugin developers to stand up their own FAIR repositories with cryptographically signed manifests for their packages that can be found across a FAIR protocol such that the source of truth is their source, their repository, above and beyond AspirePress or any other FAIR-powered mirror. What does that mean for Composer? Well, to use Composer with WordPress today, you have 3 options for installing packages. If the plugin developer happened to publish the package on Packagist, which is the default repository for Composer packages, then you can use the Packagist repository natively by just going Composer require vendor name, plugin name, or whatever. An example of this is Yoast or Pantheon Systems. We maintain our own Packagist versions of our plugins. If the plugin developer didn't publish on Packagist, but has a GitHub or other public Git repository, you can add that repository to your Composer JSON as a source and pull updates that way. If neither of these options exist, the publisher does not have a public Git repository and did not publish on Packagist, you can use the WordPress community project wPackagist. wPackagist is just a WordPress.org mirror for Composer. Like adding an individual public project Git repository to your Composer JSON file, you need to have wpackagist.org as a repository source in your Composer file. Once you do, you can run Composer require wpackagist plugin or wpackagist theme and the plugin or theme name to install the plugin or theme. And wpackagist itself becomes the vendor in this case, but the actual source files are still coming from WordPress.org, specifically the WordPress.org SVN. In this model, if I want the developer to be the source of truth, I have 2 options that are entirely dependent on whether the developer has actually done the legwork to support a Composer-based install. Either they put it up on Packagist or they have a public Git repository. If they have neither of these things, I'm probably going to be using wPackagist, which is fine, except that it's subject to risk in the supply chain security if WordPress.org itself is ever compromised as a source. So the benefit of saying I trust AspirePress more than I trust WordPress.org is lost. I'm still getting my packages indirectly from WordPress.org. So what's the solution? Well, I believe there should be a FAIR-based model for Composer Packagist, a FAIR Packagist, if you will. In this case, a project essentially identical to wPackagist could be stood up that uses a FAIR repository, like AspirePress, as the source rather than WordPress.org. Maybe this repository could also be connected more generally to the FAIR protocol, so that queries for packages search those uniquely identifiable sources of truth that are spread disparately across the internet for individual plugins or themes, assuming those repositories exist, before falling back or defaulting to AspirePress or some other FAIR-based mirror. This is hypothetical. A solution does not exist, but if you agree with me or have other thoughts, I encourage you to comment on this discussion thread in the Fair Package Manager discussion board on GitHub. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to look for and personally support publishing WordPress packages on Packagist or using GitHub repositories when available. But I will still be subject to sourcing updates for everything else from WordPress.org SVN and miss out on the benefits of the FAIR protocol.